Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Insightful Astrology podcast. It's me, your host, Maria D. Simone. And maybe you haven't heard this podcast in a while, probably about a year, because that was the last time I did a podcast episode. But YouTube sent me an email last week, and apparently they are turning podcast into a bigger thing on their channel. So I said, you know what? Let me see if I can bring the podcast back because I know so many of you really enjoyed the banter, the real life astrology conversation, and my really super cool guests. So today we are going to talk about the eclipses that are coming up. We've got two eclipses back to back. That's how eclipses work. We've got a solar eclipse on April 19th in Aries at 29 degrees. And then 2 weeks later, we've got a lunar eclipse on May 5th at 14 degrees of Scorpio, actually just under 15 degrees Scorpio. So these are important eclipses, and they're sure to reflect in your world in a fascinating way because eclipses always bring fated events. And of course, if you want to know more about the astrology of anything, especially your personal astrology, you can always go to my website, InsightfulAstrology.com, schedule a session with me, or you can go and sign up for one of my classes. And don't forget to watch your video horoscopes right here on my YouTube channel. But today, I am super excited because one of my favorite people in the world, and an amazing person, but also a really tremendous psychic medium, is here to talk to me and you about the eclipses. And he's the perfect guest because these eclipses are hitting his chart just like they're hitting mine. So we're going to talk about some real life astrology, the eclipses, what they mean. And he's also going to introduce you into his world of being a psychic medium. But if, of course, if you're a fan of the podcast, you know who this man is already. He is my stolen cousin and very dear friend, Joseph Perretta. So, Joe, welcome.
Hi, Maria.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy you're doing this. You know, I haunt you all the time about doing a podcast.
You always do. And I'm so glad that you do. But speaking of podcasts, I know you have some really big news, but half of the people watching this know you and the other half don't. So I'm going to let you
who the hell I am.
Intro. Yeah, do a little intro and let them know how awesome you are.
Cool. So I'm a psychic medium, world-renowned, some may say. No, I'm kidding. But I've been doing it a while. I've been doing it 10 years. I'm certified through the Forever Family Foundation. If anyone doesn't know what that is, that's a not-for-profit organization, foreverfamilyfoundation.org. They certify mediums. They have a board of scientists, basically all around, survival of consciousness, meaning, people's souls, people who, life after death, basically, but like the scientific pursuit of it. And they test mediums, and being certified means that we went through tests. I think we had to read like 5 or 6 people, and it was graded, and they were trained not to give information away. Basically, very scientific, just to say like you're not a crackpot or some kind of like charlatan or Googling people. Like you couldn't have known these things. They were specific. You were more than like 80% accurate here. Now you can work for us for free, but helping people. And it's a lot of really recently bereaved people and stuff. So if you are grieving and you need some help, go to foreverfamilyfoundation.org. So I work with them. I've been featured on Goop.com, worked with Gwyneth Paltrow, filmed a couple of TV shows that didn't air. So I've been everywhere, but I'm starting a podcast. I took a note from your page from your book. And I'm gonna launch it hopefully in the next week or two during eclipse season. So I hope that's not a bad idea. We'll talk about it. Maybe you could give me some advice on this show.
I will.
About that. Maybe I'll alter my timeline that I have for myself. But yeah, it's called Ghost Daddy. It'll be on cute name, right?
Love it.
Ghost Daddy.
Oh my God, that is the best name for the podcast.
Yeah, I agonized for weeks over the name, and I was like, what am I going to call it? And then one day I was just like, I think Ghost Daddy's it. I think that's it.
So perfect.
Which I think is hysterical because it's like the podcast is not only for like LGBTQ people, but like I'm gearing it toward that because obviously I'm gay and I'm like I want to like have my experience and give a voice to other people. And one of my straight friends came up with it. My best friend's husband was like, what about like Daddy Ghost to Ghost Daddy? And I was like, oh my God, it's so good. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I'm over here asking every gay person I know what to call it. And like the straight guy the one time is like, Ghost Daddy. And I was like, that's amazing. I'm taking it. Thank you.
That's a brand. You just started a whole brand for yourself.
I think I did. I had a graphic made by this guy in Portugal. I'm very excited about it. I'm very enthusiastic.
I'm excited for you. And this podcast is basically going to be about mediumship, spirituality?
You know what? It's gonna honestly, it's gonna kind of be like yours. Like, I'm gonna have all different kind of disciplines on and stuff like that. I'm obviously gonna have you on since you are my familia, so you will be on. But no, I'm I'm gonna try to gear it toward at least like every other guest I want to have be someone who's like gay or trans or bi, in that world, the same world that I am. Just because I don't think anyone's really done that yet. To be
Oh,
honest with
wait.
you,
So then
like
how am I allowed to be on the show if I like, my vitamin D? So how
you're allowed. It's
Oh,
also straight people are allowed to. It is an inclusive space.
okay, all right.
But I'm going out of my way is my point to like try to bring people who have like a different perspective and like you know what I mean? Like I actually I want to have someone on. I actually didn't even ask her yet, but I met her during one of the failed filming situations.
Uh-huh.
But she's amazing. She's like this trans woman, and she's a witch, and
Oh,
I'm
that's
like
cool.
dying to have her on because I think her perspective, like not just that she's like this like amazing Luciferian like witch, not like devil worshiper, but that kind of path, but also trans. And like I feel like it just gives such a unique experience and take on things. So I'm like super excited to honestly for myself just like educate myself and learn more about people. So
Yeah.
it'll be about that, but I'm also a clown. Like I can never be serious. You know this.
Yeah.
So it's like it's gonna be that mostly. It's gonna be very lighthearted. It's not like heavy grief. It's more like fun.
And that's why I know your podcast is going to be a huge success because you are accessible. You are a real person. There's no, fake phony bullshit with
Right.
you. Keep it real with everything and you make
Right.
it fun.
Like I was
So
drunk last night.
you
I'm gonna
were.
be honest with you and the rest of my guests. I'm not hungover though, but I did have a couple. I had one glass. You know, when the wine's pouring, you have one glass too many. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. And like when you came to my house for my vision board party and you said, "Oh, I'm doing dry January," and then five
Yeah,
seconds later
right.
you were drunk.
And I had a glass of wine. I had a glass of wine in my hand. Right. Listen, it was 2018. It was from northern Italy. It was delicious. I had a little
Oh,
bit. You know how it is. You're a
I can't
tourist.
wait to have wine with you in Italy.
Oh my God, me
Can't wait.
too. We're
We,
going for everyone listening. We're going. We
yeah,
don't know when yet, but we're going.
we're manifesting an Italy trip at some point this year. Otherwise, I don't know. It's happening. It's
We'll
on my
make.
vision board. I'm staring at it, so it has to happen.
Um, I'm getting there if I have to walk across the fucking ocean.
I will carry you on my back. How's that?
Thank you. See, this is
Okay.
what family's for. But
So
yeah, so if you're interested in listening to the podcast, it's called Ghost Daddy. I'll be posting about it on my Instagram. It's just Joe at Joe Perretta is my handle. And you can find me on TikTok too, even though I haven't posted anything yet. But I promise I'm gonna.
could you also give people your website if you didn't
Oh
already?
yeah, of course. It's joeperetta.com. Perreta.
Okay.
You just
So
Google
that
Joe Perretta and I pop up.
and all of that will be in the description box when I publish this podcast. And to tell you the truth, I have no idea how this works in the YouTube podcast world because it's audio and visual. So some of you are watching the video podcast version and some of you prefer the audio and now you have access to it. So whatever you prefer, but I'm glad that Joe is here as my first guest. And we're going to now get into this super cool conversation about eclipses. And, I'm actually going to lead with some of the do's and don'ts of an eclipse time because of what you're saying about launching something important.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so let's talk about the nature of it just in general. So eclipses, the catchphrase that it kind of annoys me and drives me crazy, but every astrologer says this. They describe eclipses as a new moon or a full moon on steroids. And we need a new phrase because that's just so played out. But I can't think of a better one at this point. So it is a super intense lunation, either a new moon, which is always a solar eclipse, or a full lunar eclipse. But the reason why these qualify as eclipses instead of just a regular new moon or full moon that we have every month has to do with something called the nodes of the moon. And the nodes of the moon are these points that intersect the path of the sun and the moon around the ecliptic. And when they get to within, I believe it has to be within 15 degrees or less uh, to qualify as an eclipse. So mathematically, I could be a little off because I think it's a different rule for a solar versus a lunar. But I didn't do my astronomical fact checking because you guys know I'm just a regular Neptunian astrologer who talks about astrology. I'm not an but astronomically, I do believe it's there's a rule and it has to be. I could be wrong, but I think it's 7 degrees for a lunar eclipse, up to 15 for a solar eclipse. But anyway, the nodes of the moon have to be aligned, conjunct the sun and the moon in order for it to be an eclipse. And so what happens astronomically is this will occur approximately every 6 months, 2 weeks apart, where the nodes of the moon get to that point, and then a regular new moon and a full moon suddenly become eclipses. And then, because the nodes of the moon are faded points, the north node indicates your destiny and where you're going and growing in this lifetime. And the south node symbolizes release and past life baggage, but also baggage and stuff that you need to get rid of in this lifetime. So eclipses then become either a south node eclipse or a north node eclipse, and it's 1 and 1. Okay, so now this particular eclipse season, we are not only having the north node and the south node eclipse, which we always have, but we are having an introduction of new signs come into the eclipses, because the nodes of the moon right now are in early degree Taurus. The north node is in early Taurus, the south node is in early Scorpio, and the nodes travel backwards. So the nodes are actually by the middle of July going to go into Aries and Libra. And since now the node is 4 degrees, and I said there's a rule about you have to have the node a certain amount of degrees next to an eclipse in order for it to be an eclipse, we are having our first eclipse in Aries on April 19th, Eastern time. It's like 11:40 Eastern time. And this eclipse is at the very end of Aries, 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Aries. So it is just making it into Aries, but it is conjunct to the north node of destiny. And so that tells us that this first solar eclipses always are new beginnings, because that's the definition of a new moon, right? And the north node symbolizes it's going towards your destiny. You're supposed to be growing and going towards something. So that's the essence of the first eclipse. Now, 2 weeks later, on May 5th, we're going to have a south node eclipse, where it's a lunar eclipse, so that's a full moon, and the moon is in Scorpio now at just under 15 degrees, and the south node of the moon is at 4 degrees, so it's like 10 degrees away. And so that south node eclipse is release, letting go of something, and loss, and that vibes with the lunar eclipse essence, which is loss, culmination, could be fulfillment. But given the fact that this is a south node eclipse, in all likelihood, that May 5th eclipse is going to be about loss and letting go for most of us. And we'll dig into that eclipse more. And please know that the north node and south node can be reversed. So sometimes you could have a solar eclipse that's actually a south node.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yes, that happens. That totally happens. But I'm explaining all of this because it's supposed to give you a feel of the general vibe of, well, what can these eclipses bring into my life, into my world? So when you are looking at that 29-degree, 50-minute point in your birth chart, whatever house that's falling in for April 19th, understand that it is absolutely connected to a massive new beginning that you are supposed to be initiating, that is in fact connected to your soul growth and your destiny. Eclipses, the reason why they bring faded events into our life, faded people and faded circumstances, is because of those nodes and how close they are. So that's the intensification. And so this solar eclipse on April 19th is overall a very auspicious eclipse, because whatever is started within the 6-month range between eclipses should propel you towards your destiny, towards your future. And it is Aries in nature, because this is Aries. And so the Aries, as you know, you are an Aries, your sun is an Aries, you got Venus
tattooed on my finger.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm too much of a pussy to get a tattoo. But am I allowed to say that on a podcast?
You did, so now it's too late. So.
Okay. Anyway, see, you bring out the potty mouth in me. But anyway, I've got Venus and Aries rising. So we both have enough Aries in our chart.
Yes.
So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and Aries is all about initiation, independence, leadership. It's, excuse me, it is courage. It is the drive to do something pioneering that no one has done before. And the fact that this is a North Node eclipse tells us, but it's in Taurus, and I'll explain the Taurus part, tells us that when we are brave, courageous, independent, fearless, pioneering, and we take a risk in ourselves and do something, we're going to succeed. But the trick is, since this is the North Node in Taurus eclipse, we have to apply some Taurus stuff, which is being loyal to ourselves, being true to ourselves, Taurus and Aries together, and being committed and grounded to making this pioneering, independent, courageous goal something tangible, something real. So everything I just said, apply to your 29-degree place in Aries in your chart, and that's where what your new beginning is. And for those of you who have this eclipse conjunct a planet, personal planet, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or angle, ascendant, 4th house, 7th house, 10th, excuse me, within 5 degrees, your life is changing.
I have that. I have all that. Well, not the angle. But...
Tell us about it while I cough.
Okay, while you choke to death, I'll tell everyone about it. Are you all right? You're all right. It's allergies. So my Venus is at 29 degrees Aries in my 11th house, approaching my 12th house. It's kind of in both because it's like a degree from my 12th house. So basically when this eclipse happens, it's going to be in my 11th house. It'll be in 12th house too, but mostly 11th. And 11th house is like airwaves. It's radio, back in the day, it's podcasts, it's like media stuff. So the project that I'm actually doing, it kind of fits with this eclipse. But now Maria has me worried that I shouldn't be launching it because of what you said before.
So now that I'm calming my voice down, hopefully.
We both have allergies. Disclaimer for anyone listening. We're both like struggling with the pollen lately. I have my tea.
This is because this solar eclipse is hitting both of us. So it's in Aries. Aries rules the head. And when an eclipse is next to your sun, your ascendant, or your moon, these are physical body points. So if any of you are having head issues, allergies like us, it's the eclipse. You can blame the eclipse. And I'm so sorry for my coughing fit. I hope it doesn't happen again. But anyway.
How appropriate. We're talking about personal planets and angles.
I'm so choked up.
And here it is.
Clarity.
For real, you wouldn't be able to get through the podcast if you didn't.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, it's because I want to talk. I want to talk so much.
I know.
And so, all right. So here's the thing about launching big new endeavors at an eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Astrologers will tell you not to initiate something proactively on purpose at an eclipse within the days surrounding an eclipse.
Okay.
Because the energy is very unstable and fated situations are happening and circumstances are happening, and it can be very chaotic energetically. Okay. Having said that, think about the essence of what eclipses are meant to do. They are meant to change your life on a dime if an eclipse touches your chart by a very close degree. And this eclipse is an exact eclipse for you, Joe. It's right on your Venus. And it's also conjunct your sun. It's like both right there in the 11th house. I mean, it is so appropriate that you're starting a podcast during this eclipse energy. And it's not that it will fail. It's not that anything that you start will fail, okay, during an eclipse. It's just that if you see that something is happening during an eclipse, know that it's fated. So this is fated for you, meant to be. And also know that the energy around it is just so supercharged and intense, and you have to get through that intense period. But the intense period will go away once eclipse season calms down. And so I have initiated things during an eclipse. I even had a surgery once during an eclipse, which is a big no-no. You're not supposed to do that. But so
you lived.
I definitely lived. I was swollen. I was, that happens. But you got to live your life. And I wouldn't tell you not to launch it during the eclipse. But what I would tell you is that understand that in between eclipse season, we're also having a Mercury retrograde cycle that actually is connected to this particular eclipse season. So the first eclipse on the 19th, Mercury is still direct in Taurus, and your natal Mercury is in Taurus. Right. But then on the 21st, Mercury goes retrograde. And then on the May 5th eclipse, Mercury is actually retrograde at the time of that eclipse. Mercury's not going to go direct until I think it's the 15th or the 14th of May. I will confirm that in a minute. But it's very, to me, starting this podcast during eclipse season, you're going to start it. And then what are you going to do? You're going to be revising. You're going to be tweaking. You're going to be working out all the kinks until after eclipse season. And then after Mercury goes direct, which is after May 15th, this podcast is going to be, it's going to go. It's going to be ready to roll, and it's going to be very, want it to be, but it's going to take a little time to get off the ground.
Yeah.
So much crazy energy with the eclipse.
Right.
But this is also why you have to look at an eclipse case by case in somebody's birth chart. Because in your case, I would actually say, go ahead and launch it when you feel it's the right time to launch it, knowing that for the next month, it's going to be super intense and you're going to be doing a lot of tweaking, but it's all fated. This is all meant to be. So how could you not live your life? You meet people during eclipses that change your life. What are you supposed to do? Sit on your couch and not meet people, not live your life?
Hide from the eclipse.
No, you can't. Fated things happen to you, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't live your life. And it's a delicate balance. It is a delicate balance. I mean, people decide that they want to get divorced during an eclipse. The emotions are heightened. Should they not? But then again, you have to realize, well, that's fated. It's meant to be. They're ready. So things are supposed to happen. So I'm of the mindset of you have to live your life. Just know that the energy is crazy.
Right. Just be prepared for like a little bit of a wild or maybe tumultuous ride in the beginning. All right. Well, listen, I'm an Aries. Pluto's opposite my chart ruler. Like I could deal with a rocky ride. I'm all right with it.
I think you can. And so this eclipse in Aries is, I'm not sure if I should share my screen and bother showing the charts, because I know some of you are on audio. So I don't know if I'm even going to bother. But it's next to Jupiter. And Jupiter is in Aries. Jupiter is expansion and abundance and growth. So think about this. You have this new moon solar eclipse in Aries. And on this end, you have Jupiter saying, grow, expand, take a risk in yourself, because Jupiter's in Aries. And then you have the North Node of Destiny, which also says, grow, expand, but be loyal to yourself, and then take something that is bold and courageous and make it tangible. That's what Taurus says. So there's just way too much energy here that is saying, yes, go, do. It's do. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. This eclipse is making what's known as an out of sign square to Pluto. And that's kind of interesting because it ramps up the intensity just a little, but it's an out of sign square, meaning since Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius and the new moon eclipse is at 29 Aries, it's just not in the appropriate sign. Pluto's not
right.
But it's still a square. And it's kind of close math. So there's going to be this necessary purging of something in our lives or in this process while we're starting something new that's connected to this eclipse. I don't know if I explained that well, but that's the best that I could do with this out of sign Pluto.
Right. Well, I'll use my own life as an example since we do that on this show. So everything you're saying is like very much accurate, because honestly, like even though like, okay, it's a podcast. How many people start podcasts? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a deal. For me, it kind of has been a big deal because, and you always make fun of me for this, but like, I have it easy. Like, even in my chart is very like, it has so much flow and things just come to me. And like, this is the first time in my life that I'm actually like, excuse me, taking a chance on myself. No, I'm coughing.
Oh my God. Show.
We are disgusting today. You know, and I'm sort of like, I feel that Pluto part of it, like the purging of like, all right, you got to get rid of this insecurity. Like everyone is out here putting themselves out there and you've just been like coasting along and having people like every time I put myself out there, it's because someone's been like, oh, you're great. Here, have this platform. Like I've never created one for myself really. So I'm sort of like getting that Pluto's like kicking me. And I'm also in the middle of a Venus Pluto square Venus transit. You know, so I'm already having that Pluto energy as it is about my worth and value and money and stuff. So, you know, it's a little more intense for me, but I feel that like it might have almost nothing to do with the project itself and more about, because it's all this Aries energy, like what you have to get rid of. Like it's what's standing in the way, which is basically me being like, well, can I do this? And then I'm looking at it and being like, are you stupid? Like, look at all the things you've done. Like what, like, why wouldn't you be able to do this? But it's that like thought pattern that Pluto's like, no, stop, don't do it. Get rid of that.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so perfect. Yes, I always say you live a charmed life
I do.
because
I admit it. I,
overall, I
I
mean,
really do.
not that it's easy street, but you have a good chart. You have a
Yeah.
pretty
Things
nice,
happen easy. Well,
comfortable
listen,
chart.
bitch, you're part of it too, because you also put me out there, put me on your podcast. You talk me up, so I don't want to hear it.
Okay,
But
but now you're doing it on your own
I
because
am, you know, I'm doing it on my
Aries,
own.
it's Aries time. The
Yeah,
Aries solar eclipse is saying, do it on your own. Take a risk in yourself. You will be rewarded.
yeah.
Faded. It is grow time. That's the key phrase for this eclipse, this solar eclipse in Aries. It is grow time. And guys, you need to understand this is the first eclipse in Aries that we've had in many years.
Yeah, what is
So,
it? 19 every 19 years, right?
so actually, every 19 years is the same eclipse at the same degree.
Oh,
So
okay.
2000, so basically the last time we would have had the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra.
Got it. Was
But
2004.
we divide that in half, and it's about 9 years. So the last
Oh, okay,
10
got it.
years, I didn't go and do my math completely, but I'm guesstimating. But I did my forward math
Hmm.
because the Taurus Scorpio eclipses are finishing up, and the next time we're going to have eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio is 2031, and that's going to be when the South nodes in Taurus and the North nodes in
Oh, it's
Scorpio.
reversed.
But then the next time we have the same series of Taurus Scorpio eclipses with the North node in Taurus is going to be 2040. So when I start talking about the Scorpio eclipse, you guys need to understand that that's an eclipse to really pay attention to because it's a big karmic wrap up, and we're not going to see eclipses in Scorpio again until 2031. There's one more in Taurus in October, but we'll talk about that in another podcast. But I want to finish up with the Aries eclipse first by just saying. So I think I'll quickly bring the astrology to life for me. So this orb of influence thing, okay? I know everybody wants to make certain astrology cycles important for themselves, but you need to be strict because not every eclipse is going to change your life. It's just not. It's not supposed to. Okay. If every eclipse rocked your world, everybody would be freaking out all the time and going through total chaos. So I tend to be pretty strict with my orbs. And I actually feel like I'm being generous by allowing a 5-degree orb, but I do see it come to life for people within the 5-degree range. So it's 5 degrees on either side. So you do your 29 minus 5, and then you do your 29 plus 5, which brings you to 4 to 5 degrees of Taurus potentially. But since that's out of sign, I might be a little stingy and say 3 degrees. That's just me. I'm a stingy bitch when it comes to orbs and astrology.
No, I agree. I agree. You gotta be.
Yeah, so I'm just letting you guys know that to qualify it as a life-changing eclipse. Now, my ascendant is 24 degrees 42 minutes of Aries. So for me, this eclipse is within that 5-degree range, but a point like the ascendant is a little sensitive because if I was born a minute earlier or a minute later, it could be more exact. And so you just have to kind of, if you feel it, it's important. In that case, I know that this eclipse is very important for me. And that is because it's setting up new relational patterns, relational dynamics for me. With the North Node it's still in Taurus, my sun signs in Taurus, but it's in my first house of self. The nodes of the moon have been in my first and seventh house already with the Taurus Scorpio, and now they're finishing up going through the Aries Libra axis. But this particular eclipse, conjunct my ascendant, is supposed to be a big new beginning for myself, courageously going in a new direction, being true to myself and what I want and my independence. And it's like permission to really be selfish and to do what Maria wants to do. And that is not exactly relationship material. However, what's interesting, and we're going to talk about this much more when I give you the rundown on the nodes of the moon going into Aries and Libra, but in July, when the North Node goes into Aries, we all have this karmic obligation to our soul to grow and to be self-driven and to balance the imbalance in relationships connected to how we are relating with others. So people who are codependent, you got to get rid of that. People who are just, you know, not having healthy relationships where they're giving too much of themselves and to the detriment of the self, that's going to be addressed. And you're going to see that more when the nodes of the moon actually go into Aries and Libra. But this first eclipse is the introduction to that theme for all of us. And so in next to my ascendant, I think it's interesting because I've come to realize this about myself. My daughter actually told me this. So she's a psychology student. She's, you know, going to be a therapist, go to graduate school and all that jazz. And my daughter one day said to me, you know, Mom, I'm pretty sure that you have an anxious avoidant attachment style. And I was like, huh?
The hell did you call me?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we've all heard about love languages, but I don't
Right.
know how familiar you are with attachment style and attachment theory. This is fascinating. So, there are several different attachment styles like secure, anxious, avoidant, and then there's a blend like anxious, avoidant, or, you know, and that's basically what you qualified me as. And so, what this basically means is that I am the type of person who very much desires a close relationship. But at the same time, when it comes towards me, when it comes into my life and there's the potential of it, I tend to push it away and sabotage it because I, according to her, I have a deep fear of betrayal. So, so it's like I push it away, and I'm like, no, I need my space. I don't want to be in a relationship. I want my independence. Get away from me. And I will tell you, in the same day, I could feel this way about a man. I could be like, why isn't he living with me? Why are we not together? Why are we not like, why isn't he choosing to be with me? And that's that. And then in the same day, I'd be like, you know what? No, ew, I want to be by myself. I'm so glad that I don't have to deal with.
Actually heard you say these things before.
Yeah, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with taking care of somebody else 24/7 and all that. And it's very disjointed. Okay, it's a little cycle, but that is the essence of an anxious avoidant attachment style. You're feeling both simultaneously, and you're basically always sabotaging relationships. So how this eclipse applies to that is that it is having me confront and be very aware of the Aries part of myself and to own it and to not be so, you know, uncomfortable with it and to say, you know what, this is how I do relationships and how I'm comfortable with relationships. And maybe it's more about finding the person who fits into that instead of trying to make myself something that I'm not. Because with Aries, you have to be true to yourself. North node in Taurus, you have to be loyal to yourself in order to have any successful relationship, the other side. So I kind of think that theme is really happening for me in a big way. And you know, fated people might come into my life now over the next month. That's possible because of where it's hitting the relationship axis. And that's the Aries eclipse. So do you have any final thoughts on this amazing solar eclipse in Aries?
No, that one I'm okay with.
All right.
I'm nervous about the next one.
Yeah, the next one's called.
Well, I'm nervous about it too because I think my Pluto's at 14 degrees Scorpio. I'm pretty
What's
sure.
your Mercury? What's your Mercury?
6 degrees Taurus, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, you know, I think this is either right on my Pluto or right on my vertex. It's one or the other. I can't remember which one's 7 and which one's 14. I think my Pluto's 14 Scorpio.
Well, outer planets are
It doesn't
not
count as much, right?
typically not as much, but you know, if you're feeling it, it actually vibes with the theme of this eclipse, which I'm going to get
Right.
into.
That's why I'm a little bit like,
It vibes with it. All right. So 2 weeks after this solar eclipse that's saying it's grow time, we have a lunar eclipse that's saying it's time to cut the fat. It's prune time. They're like the total opposite. And this eclipse occurs in Scorpio just under 15 degrees. And it's a lunar eclipse, which means it's a full moon. The sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Scorpio. But this eclipse comes with a twist because the sun in Taurus is almost exactly conjunct Uranus. And it is also conjunct Mercury retrograde. So that is all opposite the eclipse. So we have Uranus opposite the eclipse and Mercury retrograde, which is confused opposite the eclipse.
Right.
And all right, something that I should have done before or wanted to say before, but I really didn't. Now I'm just going to blurt it out and say it or do it. And this is Scorpio energy with the South Node in Scorpio. So it is absolutely bringing a crisis. And don't freak out when I say crisis. You know, people catastrophize and think that the world is going to end and their life is going to end because of the planets. And nothing pisses me off more, because this is just reflecting energies and cycles in our life. And everybody needs to take a chill pill and remember that nothing very good or very bad lasts for very long, number one. And number two, we are living a life, and life is meant to have change, suffering, joy, ecstasy, happiness, all of it. And we can experience all of it simultaneously. And sometimes we have our darker seasons, and sometimes we have our golden seasons. And that's life. And freaking build a bridge and get over it already. You know, I
Very
can't.
Aries of you.
I just, you know, if you're going to freak out about astrology, don't follow astrology, please. Just
I
don't.
agree. And
You
I would
gotta
say
have-
too with Scorpio energy, not to cut you off, but like
go
I
ahead.
think the people who, it's so funny, I always say this, like I would rather have a Pluto transit. Maybe I shouldn't say this out loud because I'm gonna like eat my words in a week or two. But I find Pluto transits to be much more manageable than Saturn transits.
Really?
Which I think people would probably say I'm nuts, but I feel like with Pluto, it's always about the truth. Like it's always about what the truest, deepest part of you is, even if it hurts, it's true, it's there. There's never any like, personally for me with Pluto, it's never anything about like delusion or you don't like, you're not confused. Like you
That's
already
nice.
know what's up, you already know what's gonna happen from the start of it. I feel like the most pain that's caused in Pluto transits is when people don't stay true to themselves and like don't ride that very dark wave that might be, you know what I mean? Like it might be scary, but like you gotta just go with it. Like with Pluto Scorpio energy, like you just have to ride the wave. It might suck, you might not want to do it, but you know it's true, you know it's what you need the whole time. You're like, this is probably right, but like I don't want to. I feel like the people who struggle with it are always the people who are like lying to themselves or don't want to admit it. Or so that's why I'm like Pluto energy, as long as you're just like are true to yourself and admit what's going on and like use that deep intuitive part of yourself to just recognize it, like you're golden. It might hurt, but like you're okay. Like you'll get through it. So whatever happens for anyone during this, like just like stick with it. It's fine. Like it's Pluto. It's
I,
Scorpio.
I I love what you said, and you just invented the catchphrase that I'm going to use for this eclipse, which is
Mhm.
ride the dark wave.
Right. Just write it.
That is brilliant. It is amazing, and that perfectly encapsulates it, because there is likely to be some kind of loss or ending with this eclipse. And that doesn't have to be a person or a job or your home or you know, the death of somebody, although it could be for some of you. Depends on what's going on in your particular chart. You have to look at where 15 degrees of Scorpio is in your chart. What is it next to? Is it conjunct a planet, a personal planet, or an angle? Then you're going to have to let go of something more important. Is it opposite a planet? Okay. I also look at oppositions. I tend to, for eclipses, I'm more interested in conjunctions and oppositions. If you're going to look at it with a square, tighten your orb, tighten it to 3 degrees. I know I'm bitchy, but I'm just, you know, like you got to really put these into perspective. And trines and sextiles to eclipses, who gives a shit? I mean,
Right.
about that. Okay. I don't care that this eclipse is trying your Venus. Great. What else is going on? You know, conjunctions and oppositions are most important. Now, and squares I'll take, but I tighten you up. I tend to. So anyway, this eclipse is going to bring about a necessary ending, loss, but it could also be about think about the whole South Node in Scorpio lesson. While the North Node has been in Taurus all this time, having us ground ourselves and be true to ourselves and be loyal and get into the physicality of things. Scorpio South Node has been asking us to release toxic patterns, obsessive patterns, unhealthy patterns. And whatever house this South Node eclipse is falling in your chart, there is a likely to be a toxic pattern, unhealthy pattern, big fear, trust issue, situation that you have to release and let go of, or there's an actual person, event, or situation that you have to release or let go of. So for some of you, this could be emotional and very much within, and you're riding that dark wave, which is really you, and getting, you know, deciding to just go into that dark closet and face the monster in your closet. and say, you know what? I'm attacking you. I'm releasing you. I'm releasing that because that's really not good. So that's really what I have to say about this particular eclipse. But there's likely to be a jarring event for a lot of us because of the opposition to Uranus. So there's going to be a catalyst. There's going to be something that happens around the May 5th time, and it could be a month before, it could be a month after, but around the May 5th time that rattles us and that makes us want to suddenly do something about all of this toxic energy and stuff or relationship or situation. So because Mercury is retrograde at the time of the eclipse, I also think it connects to, we've been thinking about doing this before, but we haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, this is probably like you're confronted again with it, and or you're hearing about it again, and you're like, all right, now I really got to do something about it this time. I can't ignore it. Or like,
yep,
I got to listen to that voice. Oh my God, I woke up. I hate my husband. I got to leave him. Like you gotta.
And Uranus is going to stimulate into just sudden, like, all right, I'm going to do it. So don't think that making these decisions are bad or regrettable during this South Node eclipse, because you have to realize, yes, Mercury is retrograde, but there is a very strong symbolism of shedding and letting go. And I think ultimately both of these eclipses are going to be highly emotional for us because the ruler of both eclipses is Mars. And Mars happens to be in Cancer for both of these eclipses. I know how much you love Mars in Cancer, Joe.
I struggle.
I know. It's okay. I have Mars in Cancer. He's going to rag on Mars in Cancer all day long now. I live with it, okay? But this is not about wow crying with the Mars in Cancer. This is about, there's going to be a lot of reactivity with both of these eclipses and a lot of doing something, taking action because we're in our fields, we're in our feelings. And the first eclipse is actually going to be harder for that. Like we have to be aware of some difficulties with that. The second eclipse is going to be more supported, believe it or not, because the second eclipse has Mars trine Neptune. And the Mars trine Neptune energy is helping us align letting go of that toxic stuff or whatever we need to let go of, with actually helping us then move towards what really will inspire us, what really will be beneficial to us, what is for our spiritual highest good. So that second eclipse is that's the golden nugget, I think, of that second eclipse.
And even if it's like the delusional part of Neptune, at least it'll be like some blind hope that'll get you through it at first. So like some kind of like optimism. You're like, oh my God, maybe this will happen. And then even if it doesn't, you're like, all right, well, I needed to believe that at the time, or I needed,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's basically what I have to say about the eclipses. This eclipse is hitting my chart. It is opposite my sun sign. So both eclipses.
Oh, you're getting hit with both of them.
I am, and they're both at physical body points, ascendant sun. So I know I have to take care of myself and all
Right,
that.
drink your vitamin C or whatever the hell your emergency.
Not going to be hospitalized. Don't freak out if you have an eclipse to your sun. Everybody needs to chill. But my sun sign is at 17 Taurus, and this is 15. This lunar eclipse is 15.
Oh, so it's right there.
And Uranus is conjunct my sun right now, so it's triggering something for me, and it happens in my first seventh house, relationship dynamics. So there is a possibility of a big crisis erupting, maybe with an unsavory situation in a relationship, perhaps, which I'm not going to talk about in detail if there is or there isn't something like that. But anything Scorpio related, sneaky, deceptive, untrustworthy, issues of betrayal, that has been a big theme for me across my life. But there's something coming out with that has to be released. And maybe what's going to be released, this is my hope, is that deep fear of betrayal, releasing that, and maybe going towards something new in a totally new direction, possible. Okay. That's my hope, but we'll see.
Right. We'll see. If you're sneaking around in some type of way, watch it during eclipse season. Is the message?
Maybe. Well, if it's in your relationship axis, yeah.
Right. If it's in your seventh house.
Where is this eclipse for you? It's in your fifth house.
It's in my sixth, actually, my sixth house. So it's still work stuff.
It's in your sixth house. It's right next to Pluto, and it's not doing anything else in your chart.
I mean, by very wide orb, it's opposing my Mercury, so I'm not really counting it because it's like 5 or 6 it's kind of far.
I think I know what this eclipse is for you. I think it's about releasing your self-sabotaging tendencies about your work habits so that you can go towards the success of the new endeavors that you're trying to do. I think it's as simple as that for you.
I think so. And you know what I think it is too, which is like something I don't really like to ask for help from anyone. Like I'm so not that person. I would rather suffer in silence, like do my own thing. I don't want to ask for help. I don't need anything. I don't want anyone to like, I mean, you're my family. I don't care what you know. But like, you would think I was a Scorpio the way that I act. Like I'm very like, no one's business. I'll do it on my own in the dark. I'll cry, whatever. But doing this podcast, like even reaching out to people, I like kind of hate it because I'm like, these are people I barely know. And I feel like they're doing me a favor by being on it. And I'm like, I didn't know I had so much around this. I had no idea. So I feel like that maybe this Scorpio eclipse is gonna make me get over that real quick.
Oh my God, reframe that. You have to be like, hey, so and so, I have an opportunity for you if you're interested.
Right.
Would you like to be a guest on my
Well, I guess I'd feel like that more if I had people listening. Like if I had listeners already.
Listen, everything starts with one listener, one viewer,
That's
two
true.
viewers, and then
My dad's already listened to the intro that I put out a couple of times. So I have one listener.
I'm impressed. Listen, you already edited and did intros better than me. I can't do any of that crap.
You could if you put your mind to it.
Oh, I have no patience for any of that.
I was just gonna say you're being like Aries Taurus. You're like, oh, I want to pay someone to do it.
Exactly. My sister always says you throw money at problems all the time. I do. That's the Taurus way. But anyway, so these Taurus Scorpio eclipses. The last thing I'll say is that this is the last eclipse in Scorpio until 2031. And then once we get to 2031, it's going to be North Node in Scorpio eclipses. So this is the last South Node eclipse in Scorpio that we will have until 2040. So guys, that's a big deal. We got a long time until we have to deal with this karmic stuff again. So get rid of the shit that you have to get rid of with this May 5th eclipse because it is the final cleanse. Think of it as the what the colon cleanses, like the gross
like a colon broom for your life.
It's the final cleanse. You gotta make sure that is all out.
A colonic for your life.
A colonic for your life.
There's the imagery, everyone. A colonic.
I know. So gross. But we keep it real.
Scorpio. Very Scorpio. Shit, plumbing, toilets.
Exactly. And it's gotta go at this eclipse. It's gotta go. All right.
Oh, and I do want to talk about too before we go, because I find this very helpful, is that like you said, every 19 years, it's like it was at the same degree. So you can look back if you're old enough, like 19 years ago, or I can't, what is it, 38 years ago, if you're old enough to look back that far, and you'll notice like a theme returning. It won't be the same situation, obviously, but it will be a similar theme.
I'm glad you brought that up. So if you're old enough to have lived life around April 19th, 2004, the solar eclipse occurred at 29 degrees 49 minutes, so basically the same thing.
Right, the same thing.
And again, North Node eclipse. It was the North Node and Taurus eclipse. And then 2 weeks later, on May 5th of 2004, we had our South Node eclipse at 14 degrees 42 minutes of Scorpio. So if you're old enough to remember themes, it's not going to be the same thing that happens exactly because other astrology was transiting and happening and other cycles were happening at that time in your life. But thematically, that is going to be an exact hit in your chart as far as the houses and whatever planets they were conjunct or opposite or even square. So it's always a great idea to look back. And if you keep an astrology journal, track what happens in your life with these eclipses, because you'll find it valuable to look in 19 years from now or at the halfway point to see, well, what's going on. It's very cool stuff. So thank you for reminding me in the world about that. I appreciate it. So all right. So any parting words? I think we've covered it.
Yeah, I think we covered the eclipses. I
think we did a pretty decent job. And for those of you who want to know more about how these eclipses are affecting your chart, watch your rising sign forecast for April and May because their eclipses are apart. So watch the rising sign because the math is more close to being exact than the sun sign. The sun sign is more thematic. You can also watch for your sun sign, but as far as the specific life events happening in real time, that's going to be more attuned to your rising sign than anything else. And basically, that's all I've got for you. So thank you guys for tuning in to the new installment of the Insightful Astrology podcast. I don't know if this is going to be monthly, weekly, or yearly. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. My intention is to bring this more often. And thank you so much, Joe, for being here.
Oh, thank you for asking me. You know, I always love doing this, and I love listening to your podcast. Even when I'm not on it, it's so good. Everyone really should listen. Listen to old episodes. They're good.
Oh yeah, the old episodes are all over iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that. But these episodes are going to be on YouTube radio and YouTube video. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm excited about it. Again, for more information about me and my work, go to InsightfulAstrology.com. And for Joe Perretta and his amazing insights psychically and mediumship insights, go to joeperretta.com.
Yep.
Spell it again, Perretta.
Perretta, one R, 2 R's, 1 T. joeperretta.com. Just Google me. I pop up.
And check out that podcast, Ghost Daddy. I mean, you know it's going to be awesome. Title like that. Seriously. Who's your daddy?
Right.
Ghost Daddy. All right. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.